And I've returned to the yellow realm here. I don't think I've actually changed any settings, and I kind of like how it looks today, so I'm going to leave it. This isn't typical of this format of video for me, as it's a less definitive experience of my life, and I'm describing specific individuals, against whom I have no grudge, though maybe I should have an invoice. Though these are clear examples of very pointed mistreatment, it's the action rather than the individual that I'd like to describe, because I do these videos to see what my experiences can illustrate to others. I'm not interested in confronting the individuals. I'm leaving comments on with the trust that you don't dwell on the individuals. I feel like I've paid for the details I include about them, and you haven't. If you diss them, you have to pay them a bit, which they can then pay me back. I think I operate with a general grudgelessness. It's not some angelic policy, but an orientation. I'm in too much constant pain to deal with cattiness and subtext, and the whole experience of communication involves a bit of believing that its participants are trying to communicate honestly. That probably makes me hella gullible for an atheist. There was a guy at school since literally day one of high school through to day whenever he stopped turning up to college. Had a consistently definitive personality as a joker, but kind of clingy, which are fine. I myself combine those aspects in a hopefully a lot more nutritious recipe. This one's more the parrot sidekick who spends every day for years bringing back that joke you told him once. In this case, he asked me the stock joke, when is a door not a door? And I improvised a janky sequel about the jar not being a jar because it was a pen. And maybe you adore the pen, so it's not a pen when it's adored, which results in a rock, paper, scissors game called Door Jar Pen. I was just riffing, and the joke was how bad the joke was. And he's reminded me of this every time we've interacted since we were 10. He was charismatic himself, good at music. There's definitely a performer there, but also bluster and neediness. I liked him enough, but annoying would be in the top few adjectives. Sorry, dude. I've got loads of downsides, and these are just the character flaws of a school child. He was more socially successful than me, but in a frantic way, which differs from my now frantic failure and then outsider resignation. Maybe I should get back to that. He felt kind of typical hetero, a little bit where, a little bit way, a cheeky chancer, where you can both call him harmless and feel deeply sorry for any girlfriend he ever had. He always has something to say, often the same things, often bullshit. After years of being this cute little character, at college I was logistically less close to him, but same college, and I saw that his drama class peers were going off him. And he was disappearing a lot and lying to people, temperamental. But simply, I believe he got into drugs. I'm not even certain on that, nor do I care to ask around. If it's false, that's the part I've fictionalized for legal defense. This bit happened away from me, and then we went to different universities. I understand he struggled with university. Relatable. Having him as a Facebook contact, he messaged after a few years, initially polite, but probably after something. He asked to borrow £30 to begin with. I said it was weird to ask someone so far away and he should ask more nearby people, and in a hilarious prehistoric way, I didn't even have online banking set up properly. He tried turning on the charm, which actually works because it's so slimy you would do anything to stop it. Like when people flirt. Here are some chat log clippings, and this really hurts to look back at, both in the way that reading any chat log does, but also watching me fail. He claimed it was for urgent travel costs and he'd pay me back £40. I don't really care for the profit, but for confronting dire straits, a friend in need to bleed you. In a way that's laughable in the overview but relatable in the moment, this repeated and escalated over a matter of months, promises, deadlines in the past tense, ghosting, returning, years, messaging only to promise that he's he's almost ready to pay back or to ask for a bit more. Clearly, he'd recognized that I was someone he could annoy into lending him money if he promised a bit of interest. Sometimes it came with a story about a job interview or a new job with a paycheck coming up. Fuck your stories. A lot of times, he just wanted a pizza. I don't understand takeaway meals. It's really expensive, not that nice, and you have to make eye contact with someone. I don't like eye contact. It's all squidgy. Some way I ended up literally making an account and placing these online orders for him with added cookies and Coke, the drink, and I guess those bits at least proved he wasn't spending it on drugs. It's embarrassing to mention how backboneless I seem in retrospect. He found a good mark because I really don't believe in holding money. I had a bank account above zero. Humble brag. And there was literally no need for me to have that. I do believe in those ethics in general, but to exercise them unto me with a disability and on minimum wage isn't the systemic solution. But on an individual basis, it felt like it ought to be, and I'm drawn toward that kind of redistribution. I know I come across as posh. It's generally from a failure to nail the local accent. I've tried breathing out there, it does not set in. I'm from a state school, the Midlands, a famously, actually cartoonishly deprived area. Though once you've zoomed into that regard, I am far from the worst off. I'm privileged enough to not always be worrying about money until the last couple of years. And if that's posh to you, then yeah, it's relative. I'm loads below the average UK citizen wealth. That's an understatement to the extent that it feels parodic. Though that statistic is skewed by how needlessly rich some people are. They're not even using it. They cause suffering. They should be buying us pizzas. If you're ready for the number, these borrowings warmed up to 500-ish before I stopped it, with a promised interested value of £600, which when you convert it to real money is £0. £500, that's like 2 weeks' groceries. Might just clarify that that's a joke about the increasing cost of living in case you're watching this after it's literally true next week. I've since learned that he's done the same to others, if not definitively to the same extent. I'm using my is like this video format to point out how your scammer may well be the skeevy guy from school annoying you into it because you've got more money than sense, and for me that just means having any money at all. I've encountered him in person a few times since, always leading with that slimy anti-charm, often upfront about how he intends to pay me back and will come up with a plan or some pointless shit. Sometimes he's even written a payback schedule. I'll believe it when I see it as a transaction, but I'd rather he give it to the needy, like I tried to believe I was doing, including the promised interest, though. I don't know if he's doing okay in general and have no instinct to hound him. I'm not certain of this video because I'm telling other people's stories without hearing their sides. I think their sides ought to be shared, but I'm not mad at them. So considering how few viewers I get, like there's a high likelihood that a large percentage of my viewers could be these two people. I hope I've clarified it's about the experience. I've had a look at chat logs and what I'm saying about my experience still checks out. But more stories should be heard. Maybe not from exploiters, maybe only from exploiters if they're repentant, but also from sufferers, which I believe each of these people to be. Second one then, here's someone I was close, measurably best friends with for a while. Don't stalk them, don't stalk me. Actually, you can stalk me. Not you. You. If you think you've figured out who it is that I know, there's others who fit that description, so try again. Actually, don't. This is a communication that dissipated, which involved her boyfriend saying she can't talk to me because I was the dreaded combination of male, deeply sexy, and far better than him in every aspect, or at least in doing not domestic abuse. This is a scenario I've occupied a few times, and let's not make it a cutesy cartoon. I am a scamp in theory, but not a horny or invasive one, and I'm too tired for most scampery. My really excruciating attributes are those of being a good friend. Have I got the job. That's a relationship she's since escaped, but our slight communications since haven't sustained sustainably. She's gone through horrible experiences, easily more magnitudinous than anything else I describe in this video. Boo-hoo, my money numbers. Suffering is the actual expensive thing. Our friendship was generous in a way that was mutual and welcome, without either of us being rich, without money being the definition or measurement. We were kind. We lost this, I got through the grief, and years later, with a change in her situation, we attempted to reconnect. I learned, maybe we learned, that our communication wasn't something fit to restore. Later attempts at rapport didn't get anywhere. Maybe we remained well-wishers. You'd hope so. In that era of unsure communication where we hoped to maintain the concept, if not the content of our friendship, we checked up a little bit, but it felt deflective. She wasn't doing well and had had a solid lifetime of not doing well, largely due to the abusive influence of dominant figures. In her quest to establish her own living space to escape from this, she'd come up against a fucking deposit, or that was the story, and pouted about how she's gonna miss out on the opportunity due to not having her paycheck in time, which is exactly what someone intending to con you would say, but in my defense, it's exactly what someone in that real situation would say. It's a good setup. Lead them into coming up with the idea rather than asking them. I'm privileged enough to have barely ever faced these kind of situations and to be able to support others, not in exchange for anything, just because of the difference in positions. You need money and you don't have it yet. I do, so borrow mine. Not you, by the way. Unless you need... Actually, let's not. It's nice philosophy though, right? If we accept the pretense of ownership, it should have caveats regarding need. Maybe I considered simply giving, but decided that borrowing was the fair structure, that her claimed problem was very temporary, that to give a lump sum would offset our dynamic. By the way, you want a number? It was £600 again. I think I rounded it up. I think I said there's what you need, and there's a bit more because you shouldn't be on the minimum what you need. Asking how the flat deposit went, she admitted she blew it on gambling. I don't know for sure if there ever was a flat. I guess knowing if it was intentional exploitation would change something, but betraying my trust can't be defended either way. A gambling addiction is its own tragedy, but it also causes its own tragedy. Here in the Midlands, the dominant industries used to be the production of useful material goods, and now it's gambling enterprises, direct exploitation of the poor rather than exploitation of the poor through the labour system. Harm in the place of production. A game that rephrases your desperation into greed, into need. She's experienced a lot of poverty, which I propose caused the gambling instinct. Dunno. Again, I don't need it back. This is now by far my highest budget video. So there, your scammer may well be your struggling bestie. That's a really harsh lesson, one we might prefer not to learn. I think I can file each of these experiences as scams, with only a little distortion to the definition, maybe none. I'm making a point here about being scammed. In each case, it's feasible they weren't consciously scamming me. They're taking unfair advantage, but they're desperate themselves. Borrowing comes with the intent to return. You wouldn't keep a library book. Then one could also fease that there were conscious elements, but from my perspective I can't or just don't want to fease that bit. That they thought of my loyalty as something that exists to betray. Intentions are distorted by addictions. I don't need somebody to be culpable here, but to describe it and help us recognize such situations. I strongly dislike the traditions involved in money. I think we made up to give people differing worths. I don't believe in its core principles, its exploitation and cruelty. And that's what makes me a money expert. I believe in redistribution and I'm gonna continue doing it. If you're about to comment that me not believing in ownership means I should give you everything I have, I also don't believe in your ownership, so checkmate, greedy fucker. I have a habit of not letting my bank balance reach a particular upward value. Yeah, I used to go upward a bit. Shaving something off for charity because it's obviously directly immoral to keep money. But I'm not the problem, and I've learned to stop doing that because of how much more everything suddenly costs and how shit charities are. And maybe I'm learning not to be exploited like this. Please don't exploit me. It feels such a morally inherent principle that you don't keep something someone else could use that you're not using. But here's 2 cases where I don't seriously believe it helped them. One might have gotten short-term use, but learning he can't exploit people like that would have been more helpful. The other, it helped her own poison. I give to GoFundMes. GoFundMe. Other GoFundMes are available. And I think I may have applied similar ethics to these people if they were presented in that context. Giving. Not nearly as much for the first guy, but then that came with the interest that it never came with because it didn't come. I think needs should be highlighted and confronted. This should be global, but until it is, it's useful to be local. Smaller scams I've given to are pledge music, rental living, having a job, going to university, and staying alive, none of which ever paid off. I've also been missold stuff on eBay, but I thought of vlogging this. Yeah, I can call these vlogs. I thought of vlogging this when I witnessed someone fall for a very tropey scam and felt the indignation, the unfair world, but also the privilege of never being one to fall for that. I know that Ghanaian government officials don't use live.co.uk email addresses and send impatient threats, and the currency of Ghana ain't Steam vouchers. But clearly I do fall for stuff. My empathy was exploited, but whatever weakness they tug at, it's still a trick of confidence. They banked on me believing that they were better people than they are, or respect me more than they do. So again, this isn't meant as a diss on either of them. Maybe I'm the fool parted from his money, but I prefer that to the bastards that keep their money. Possessing money doesn't even mean anything. I just want to express the faceplant that faith is. We really want to trust and help each other, even though people do their shit because of unfair circumstances, but also because of opportunities to exploit. I don't know if it'll stop me from doing this in future if I can afford to. Maybe I don't even regret having betted on human honesty. If you liked this video, maybe you'd consider subscribing to my inverse Patreon. I think I've stayed still for long enough now.